I've been waiting a very long time to make a good video on Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. This sub-franchise has a story that rivals the likes of Zelda and most movies. If the Pokemon aspect was subtracted from these games, and they were slightly altered story-wise, then we'd have an absolutely flawless story. Many people are turned off by these games, either because it has Pokemon in the title, or because it's a dungeon crawler that kind of goes against the nature of the original Pokemon series. But for those who look past what they find flawed about these games, they realize the epicness of the story. These writers need to be working on like legit film franchise stories. Jeez, why would they waste their talent on Pokemon games? But basically, if you couldn't tell, I love these games' stories. Along with Phantom Hourglass, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team was one of the first games I'd ever played. Not long after completing it, I was consumed by the story, and went out to buy Explorers of Darkness, its sequel. I loved it even more than the first one, and so, today, we'll be looking at Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, the exploration games. But the story aside, these games also have amazing soundtracks. Almost every video I've been making includes a Pokemon Explorers song in it. Anyways, I've made another Pokemon Explorers theory, but it's pretty badly made, so today I will be completely reanalyzing it through a new lens, and I will be placing this game into a huge timeline. Just for the record, timeline videos are my favorite to make, so I'm very excited to get into this, and then I'll show you my ultimate conspiracy theory on it. So let's begin by mapping out the timeline. Where do we begin? Well, that's a very tough question to answer. The story involves time travel and paradoxes, so we could therefore start anywhere. But let's start with the pre-story to the game. You are a human with your Pokemon Grovyle, and you are investigating time. The legendary Pokemon Dialga has gone crazy, and you are trying to fix him. To do so, you must travel back in time to when Dialga was tame. So basically, in the past, the world wasn't frozen in time and stuck in darkness like it is in the future. In the past, you must find several objects known as time gears, the artifacts that make time work in various regions. You are time traveling into the past with Grovyle, but a mysterious force interferes mid-transport and you are separated from Grovyle, given severe amnesia, and transformed into a Pokemon. You are then dropped in the past on a beach. From there, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time, Sky, and Darkness happens. Let's briefly recap that whole story on the timeline. Okay, who am I kidding? I'll basically just spoil the whole plot for the theory's sake. Here we go. Another Pokemon finds you on the beach, and he shows you a cool artifact that he has called a relic fragment. Suddenly, two dumb bully Pokemon appear, take the relic fragment, and you fight them to get it back. Once you do that, your new partner really likes you, and he will ask you to help him join a nearby exploration guild that he was too nervous to join on his own. You get into it, do a few missions, and then you begin to have dreams and visions. Keep in mind that your amnesia completely prevents you from remembering yourself as a human with Grovyle, but you do get visions of what Grovyle is doing. He is continuing the journey without you. You see him stealing time gears to help save time, but your character doesn't remember, and he thinks he's a villain trying to destroy time. Soon later, you go on a large exploration quest with the whole guild, and you uncover a mystery. The mystery of Fogbound Lake. Sadly though, those two bullies who stole the relic fragment got a villainous leader, and they joined the guild just to wreak havoc. And they go to Fogbound Lake just to mess with you and your partner. But at Fogbound Lake, you manage to overcome obstacles and find out what the secret is. There is a time gear there. The guardian of the lake, Yuxi, explains to you what the gears do, and then you leave with the guild, satisfied with the mystery you solved. But not long later, a Pokemon known as Dusknoir makes his way into town and says he's there to stop Grovyle, a Pokemon trying to wreck time, and that we must find and preserve all time gears before he does. You remember your visions and you associate the two, but you still don't have any memory. Then the guild spreads out to find the time gears. You succeed in finding them, but Grovyle is quicker. Because you are a Pokemon and you have amnesia, you don't recognize each other, but then Dusknoir reveals that he's from the future and that he'd come back to stop Grovyle and help out with the time gears. He then takes them from Grovyle, opens a portal to the future, and then takes Grovyle through, but at the last second, he grabs you and your partner and takes you through before you can do anything. You, your partner, Dusknoir and Grovyle are all now in the future, and you, Grovyle, and your partner are going to be eliminated to preserve time. Because apparently, and this is the twist, you were a human, and your helper was Grovyle. Boom. Great twist. Grovyle of course knows exactly what Dusknoir is talking about, but you and your partner have no idea. Dusknoir said that he was ordered by Dialga to dispose of the interferers, but what Dusknoir didn't know was that Dialga was completely insane, and Dusknoir was just being ordered to do things that would all make it worse. But Dusknoir is unbelievably loyal, and nothing would change his mind. But fortunately, you, your partner, and Grovyle all escape and get out into the world. It is what's left of the future. Time has frozen, the whole world is colorless and dark, and everyone inside it is nuts. Grovyle consults Celebi, a small Pokemon that can time travel, and Celebi sends them back to the past where they hide in a cliffside cave near the guild. But eventually you tell the guild what has happened, and they accept that Grovyle is good. And so the next step is to save Dialga before he goes insane. So everybody gathers the time gears again. Although, to save Dialga, they must know how to get to him. An elder helps them as he remembers a pattern that is connected to Dialga. The guildmaster sees the partner's relic fragment and also knows the pattern, and more importantly, where the fragment belongs. Brine Cave, a place that could take you to where Dialga is. Apparently the guildmaster and his partner had been there before. Dialga is apparently in a place between worlds and within time, known as the Hidden Land. You and your partner go to Brine Cave with the guild and relic fragment, and the relic summons Lapras, a Pokemon responsible for transporting others to the Hidden Land. He takes you, Grovyle, and your partner, and you get there. You then make your way up to Dialga's tower, known as Temporal Tower. You're almost there when Dusknoir appears and he stops you. He tries killing you with his minions, but Grovyle gives you the time gears and pushes himself and Dusknoir through the portal back to the future. You and your partner take the gears, make your way up to Temporal Tower, defeat Dialga, and place the gears into the slots. Dialga is fixed, the future is fixed, but because you are from the future, you begin to disappear. The future is new and reborn, so the path where you existed is diminished, and so you disappear. But Dialga is pleased at your efforts, and so he brings you back. But meanwhile, as all of that is going on, in the future, Dusknoir and Grovyle team up temporarily and make their way to the crazy Dialga. Dusknoir then betrays Grovyle, but soon realizes his fault, and he finally realizes everything he's done. And just then, the future gets fixed by you and your partner, and the world changes. Time starts again, and the color is brought back. The old stuff is disappearing, as it shouldn't exist. But then, they are all miraculously brought back by the god of all Pokemon, Arceus. The future is saved. The past is saved. All is good. But if there's anything these games have taught me, it was not happily ever after. You then do a bunch of mini missions. You save an explorer, you raise a Manaphy, you explore an ancient cave, and then you try evolving. But you aren't allowed. Apparently, you and your partner's existence is causing a distortion in space and time, since you'd gone to the future and back. Then suddenly, a little Pokemon from town gets a bad nightmare. You enter it with the help of a psychic Pokemon, and discover in the dream, by Cresselia, that you must be eliminated or else the world will become dark and time will freeze all over again. She says that your existence has a small rip in space-time, but that the rip will uncontrollably grow until the world is engulfed in darkness. Then, that night, she appears in your dreams as well and tells you that you must die. So, to confirm the suspicions about space and time, you must find Palkia, the governor of space. But then, the night before your exploration, he appears in your house and kidnaps you, taking you to his place. You must defeat him, and when you do, it is revealed that it was all a dream, and that Cresselia was using Palkia to kill you. But then, yet another twist. Another Cresselia appears. She says that the Cresselia that's been appearing in their dreams has been faking it, trying to kill you, and that the Pokemon in disguise was actually Darkrai. He was just posing as her to kill you and your partner. Cresselia says that she's been tracking Darkrai forever, as he has been destroying the world for ages, and that you must defeat him. You then go to his lair and you question his motives. He says that he wants to rule a future where everything is dark. He says that he was the one who drove Dialga to insanity, he was the one who interfered with you and Grovile's time traveling, and it was him that has been running the show all along. Darkrai then tries tricking you into joining him, but you refuse, and then you defeat him. He then proceeds to open a portal through time, claiming he doesn't know where it'll take him, but at least it'll be out of there. And just as he enters the portal, the real Palkia appears and shatters the portal with Darkrai inside. This interference is what will give Darkrai amnesia, and transform him into a different Pokemon, just like you were. Palkia then says that the distortion put on space by you and your partner is small, and that he will erase the distortion. And then, all is fine. You go home with your partner, and the game is over. So, there we have it, mapped out onto a timeline. One of the biggest questions that has been on my mind for a long time is where the partner got the relic fragment from. Now, this is either a major plot hole or an intentionally unexplained point. So, let's delve into the unknown and solve this mystery. I was watching the short-lived anime of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky, and Wigglytuff the Guildmaster said that the relic fragment chose the partner. Tell me exactly how. That thing is a rock, under the control of Dialga, and could only be found near Brine Cave where it originated. It could always have been summoned upon the worthy being, like Wigglytuff said, but that seems too convenient, and it isn't likely that it would just be sitting around. So before I go further with this point, I need to bring up another point. Wigglytuff himself. He appears fairly dumb and intentionally a troll. Super dumb. Just look at him with his perfect apples. He's the biggest airhead in the entire game, and he provides nearly the only comic relief. But in tough situations, he will prove himself as not actually dumb, and rather an extraordinarily powerful Pokemon. His apprentice, Chatot, seems to know this too. In the special episode Igglybuff the Prodigy, we see just how he acted as a child. Far more abnormal than his peers, Igglybuff was seemingly either mentally deficient or mentally genius. It appears as though he sees nothing negative in anyone, and dealt with bullies by being even more blissfully nice. Igglybuff was a prodigy, in more ways than just his drive for treasure hunting. He was a genius, hiding behind a mask of idiocy. A great facade. We constantly see his true self seeping through. He has constant bursts of rage, power, and intelligence. Nintendo and Chunsoft are so clearly displaying that there is something more. They went so far as to show how Wigglytuff was as an Igglybuff, and how he matured in the strangest way, a way only explainable by this. It's a false persona used to drive unsuspecting people away for his own self-preservation. We see his seriousness expel when talking to Lapras, and when he's on self-adventures. Another example for just how unbelievably shady this character is when you have a vision of how to enter Waterfall Cave. You see Wigglytuff jump through the waterfall, and when questioned, Wigglytuff says he knew nothing of the sort. This exact same kind of thing happens many times throughout the game, and Wigglytuff dismisses it all. So shady. So back to my point about the relic, I think Wigglytuff was the one who chose the partner. Wigglytuff saw the desire in this Pokemon to join his guild, and he casually left the fragment for this partner to pick up. The partner hadn't gone on a single exploration before, so the only way he could have found it is if it was in town, as if someone put it there. Dialga could not have had any influence after all, as he was insane, but what's more is that Wigglytuff had been to Brine Cave prior to the main story. He was there with Chatot, and he knew Lapras. So tell me right now, how hard is it to consider the fact that Wigglytuff was the one who gave it to the partner? Need I remind you that the only way to summon Lapras is if you have the fragment, meaning Wigglytuff had to have the relic fragment first in order to do any of this. Wigglytuff was the one who permitted this partner to save time itself. So why didn't Wigglytuff do it himself? I know exactly why. Because the human was going to arrive in the past as a Pokemon and fulfill his duty of saving time with Grovyle. How did Wigglytuff know about this? Well, you never know. Maybe Cresselia told Lapras about Darkrai's plans. Everything, and I mean everything, points to all of this being the case. Of course, the biggest plot point being that to summon Lapras you do need the stone, and when questioned about it by a town elder who knew about the legend, Wigglytuff acted all innocent and dumb, saying, "Haven't we seen this before, Chatot?" And he agreed, but wow, And before the guild goes to Brine Cave, Wigglytuff leaves early to speak to Lapras about a secret that Chatot and him kept for years. It's assumed that the secret is about the undisclosed location of Temporal Tower, and it is, but it's also about you and your partner, and the plan that they made to save Dialga because Cresselia warned the Transporter of Time Lapras itself. Now that makes for a good story. Hold on. If Wigglytuff goes to Brine Cave without anyone just before the exploration, and without the relic fragment, then how does Lapras appear when Wigglytuff approaches without the fragment? Well, that too can be summed up by the fact that you can only summon Lapras without the stone if you've already used it once. Example, Lapras just waits at the beach for you and your partner whenever you want to go to the Hidden Land, after you've summoned him. But whenever you want to take the full team, he says it won't work, as only you and your partner are the chosen ones. They use the rock, they get permission. No other teammates allowed. And I also suppose that this means since they stuck the relic fragment in the Rainbow Stone ship, that 0 other people will ever be allowed to go there again. Now that's an improvement to the story if I've ever seen one, and I'm sure that Wigglytuff is hiding much more too, but that'll be for a later date, as this theory is well over long enough. So until next time, I'm the Theorizer.